Heading via Zoom now to Brighton in Melbourne to catch up with the co-founder and CEO of the Retail Prodigy Group. His name is Steve Unane. Welcome to TheInformer, Steve.
Hi George, thank you.
Really interesting times. Victoria, of course, has gone through an enormously difficult stage 4 lockdown. A number of businesses, retail stores such as yours. I should add that you have many of the Nike retail stores in Australia and New Zealand, and also Correct. You have the online access to and distributorship of the famous Tom's shoe range. Is that correct?
Correct, that's right.
So give us a sense of just how complicated it's been to run a business when so many of the others in the marketplace have been told to shut down.
Yeah, look, George, it's hard to believe it's 6 months. We made the tough decision around the 1st of April to shut down all of our stores across Australia and New Zealand. And that was a very tough decision to contemplate a business that was just going to go dark. We don't have an online channel. So for us, it was about, turning off cash flow completely. We made that decision. And fortunately, what followed was various levels of support, namely the JobKeeper program that we were eligible for. We applied for that, enrolled in JobKeeper, and that enabled us to keep our team members employed and engaged in the business over that period of time. And then we had various levels of support from our landlords. In retail, the two biggest overheads are wages and rent. So, we knew we had to focus on those two key areas. Obviously, of course, cash flow was going to be so precious to try and preserve that over that period of time. Look, we reopened, in a staggered way, but then we find ourselves in Victoria, closed once again, and this time around it's even longer. I think in the end it's going to be somewhere like 8 weeks, I think, of closure in Victoria, and that's a big chunk of our business, or our revenue just essentially gone to zero in this period of time. So it's challenged us almost on every front of the business.
It sounds also, though, that you've gone out and you said you've spoken to your landlords and others, and you've got this, support, which is most encouraging. How has it manifested? What did you do with those costs, those fixed costs that every business struggles with or has to deal with?
Yeah, well, it's we knew that very quickly that we had to get onto the front foot, mostly with the landlords, because we knew that there was some support coming from the government. So we thought, at least from a wages point of view, that we'd have some level of support to continue to keep our team members employed and paid. But what we decided to do with the landlords is take a bit more of a proactive and strategic approach with the landlords, and essentially, pick up the phone and start the conversation, because we knew that if we waited, we'd be waiting a while. Having said that, though, look, we've had a small number of landlords that were very proactive, meaning that were on the phone to us very quickly, offering support. And mind you, they were the small landlords, almost the independent landlords that you might have a store on a street somewhere. Really, really well, well-intended landlords.
Were they prepared to share the risk with you at that time?
Correct. Correct. And look, and I think that was important. That clearly this was a time where the relationship between the landlord and the tenant was tested. It's pretty fair to say that trust is not a high value between landlords and tenants. So we sort of expected that this was going to cause a bit of a standoff between, the landlord and tenant. So we thought that we would take, I guess the lead role in initiating the start of a conversation that ultimately would end up in a negotiation. And to your point, it was all about shared risk. This wasn't a chance for us to get back at the landlords. This wasn't a chance for us to sort of say, okay, now finally. That's not the approach we took. We took an approach where the way we thought we could work through this both in the short term and longer term, is to try and work off a model where there was shared risk. That if we're going to take a bit of pain, so should the landlord, but also too, once things go back to normal, they should benefit from that as well. So not being one way. And I'd say we've had varying degrees of success there. I'd say the majority of our landlords have supported us in some way, shape or form, some more than others, some very proactive, and some even as today, we still haven't finalised support that was required 6 months ago. So, but again, I think that ultimately we have got the business in a relatively good position for it to sort of bounce back once we get Victoria reopened.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. What I want to know is, you talked about getting on the phone and talking to the landlords. Have you had any success at picking up the phone and talking to government or to the banks?
Short answer, George, is no. We didn't prioritise that at all. We felt that if we could cover somewhere like 40% of our costs, which is rent and wages, if we really got focused on, 40% of sales in rent and wages, we felt that if we could tackle those two things, that we'd be a long way towards ensuring that we managed through the period, sort of had our cash flow in good shape. Now, mind you, we had various, let's call it emails from our bank offering support. Fortunately, we're not a leveraged business, highly leveraged business, so we didn't really need to rely on the banks for support there. And look, in terms of government, I'm one of the councillors on the Australian Retailers Association, so they've been very active in I guess lobbying the support of the government. So, for example, the leasing code of conduct, was some good work that came out, with regards to negotiating with I guess the Australian Council, the Australian Retail Association, the Australian Shopping Centre Council, and then government. So, so I think there was some good work done there. But me personally, our business, no, we didn't connect in directly with government or banks.
Now, we talk about the arrival of online. Online had been around for quite some time, but what COVID has managed to do is really accelerate it, give it this almost supersonic boost. Have you
Correct.
seen that with Tom's, with your distribution units there?
Yes, absolutely. And look, all reports would say that for the majority of retailers that were already had an omni presence, had an online business, that through COVID, and particularly when stores had closed down, their online business skyrocketed, 100% up on last year, 200% up on last year. We found that with Tom's, our business online has improved by about 70 to 100% online.
Wow.
But it's still a relatively small business for us. We've only had the brand for 2 years, and we don't have, we only have one store currently. Naturally, our online business was going to perform quite well whilst our store was closed. But absolutely, what this has done is that it's almost added fuel to the fire, fuel to the online fire, meaning that we'd already started seeing trends of online growing at a faster rate than bricks and mortar. And we also, noted that online sales were becoming a greater percentage of retailers' revenue. What this has done is it accelerated that quite dramatically. And I think it's mostly because of a whole lot of new customers being exposed to online. Maybe those customers that were never, an online shopper, almost were forced to buy online because they had no other way.
Captive audience.
Absolutely. And some of those barriers, some of those hurdles that were there around, maybe trust in, my credit card over the, online. I think once those consumers got over those sort of potential hurdles and then realised, in fact, this is actually not as bad as what I thought. I think what we then found is that they started to shop more frequently online. So I think you had new customers, adopting online as a channel. And then I think you probably saw the more loyal online shoppers shopping even more so. I mean, I know myself, I'm not an online shopper, but I've shopped so much more online than ever before. And I think that's going to be a problem for retailers. That structural change will be a problem longer term for retailers as they think about the mix between their physical environment, their physical stores, and their online store. That's going to be a real, I would say every retailer at the moment is assessing that mix between physical and online stores.
There's one other thought I want to run past you before we finish this, and that is what happens to the next generation of young retailers. You started at Myer, you started at Grace Brothers in those early days, years ago. We call them the great old days of retail. And you got your experience in, you got the runs on the board. Where are the next young men and women of retail going to come from if online's going to be the pressing turbocharger? You see, the retail stores, you need people, you need jobs, yeah? And I think only with jobs, bringing more jobs and confidence, will we see the market bounce and get the sort of returns that we need.
George, what you've just asked me there is probably one of the biggest things that concern me about the future of retail, and that's where's the future talent of retail coming from? We already know that we need to do a better job of highlighting retail as a viable career for young people.
Career path.
We know it has some negative, connotations around retail. It's sort of like that thing you fall into, or it's a stepping stone to your real job, your real career. So that's going to be a challenge for us. It really is. And, and that's also about skills. It's about ensuring that we continue to invest in the development of young retailers, because we need talent. We need to be more, active in being able to attract talent to the industry at a young age. Try and get them when they're thinking about their, where they're going to go to uni and what next. So I think what the online business has done is created a new retailer of the future. A retailer that's much more tech savvy, much more social savvy. And it's going to make it harder for the bricks and mortar stores, because if you're like me, you still want those people that like serving customers.
Correct.
That physically like to serve a customer.
Steve, listening to you, I wish you every success. I want those stores open ASAP. We want those jobs for the next crop of young retail hopefuls to come through, because Christmas is coming.
Yes.
So Steve Yanane, thank you very much for joining us. The co-founder and CEO of the Retail Prodigy Group, Steve Yanane, joining us on The Informer. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, George. Bye-bye.